But of course, if she is a friend of Mammon from darkness, and you are vouching for her, then we would allow her in, no matter how vicious a criminal she was. Really now, my apologies, then. In that case, I'll leave that to you. Also, I apologize for this, but could you allow us darkness to enter the city first? After receiving permission, Ains returned to Narbril and Hamsuk. We've been allowed in. Let's enter the city. He mounted up on Hamsuk's back and bypassed the line of people. The queuing people all looked at him, but once they saw his black armor, his great swords, Hamsuk and Narbril, they all averted their eyes. They understood that Ain's status was far greater than theirs. The gate sentries bowed deeply to them as they passed by, and then they entered Irantal. Now then, Nabe. I have something to ask of you. Understood. Please command me as you see fit. Since they were both adventurers, it did not seem good for her to display such loyalty on the streets. However, Ains had gradually realized that it was pointless to lecture her, and so he continued speaking. The girl driving the wagon from just now Enri will be entering the city soon. Go ask her why she came to Irantal. After that, Ains found a place to hide himself. This was because he wanted to avoid speaking with Enri too much. He surveyed his surroundings and saw a stack of tall wooden crates he could probably hide behind, and so he commanded Hamsuk to make haste towards it. The soldiers working there panicked when they saw Ains and Hamsuk approaching them. Gentlemen, are you free? I'd like to ask about these crates. Once he was certain that he would not be spotted from the city gates, Ains addressed one of the soldiers. Of course, he was not interested in the crates at all. He had simply made up a pretext to be there, because he was worried others might chase him away for interfering with their work. Ah, all right. We're very glad that you'd taken interest in our work, Maman-sama. The crates are filled with vegetables from the Grandel province, known as Kingshu. These vegetables. As Ains listened to the soldier's earnest explanation, he mumbled replies like I see, and so that's how it is. The soldier did not seem to mind the half-hearted responses, and continued his lecture. After learning how to cook the vegetables called Kingshu in exacting detail, he sensed Narbril approaching from behind him. Forgive me for interrupting your explanation. I learned a lot, thank you. However, my companion has returned, and so I must leave. After his one-sided farewell to the soldier, Ains ordered Hamsuk forward. How did it go? Firstly, she wanted me to thank you, Maman-san. After that, she said that she had 3 aims, namely selling off the herbs she had collected, checking the temples for people who might want to move to the village, and finally, traveling to the Adventurers Guild. The Adventurers Guild? What kind of request is she putting in? Forgive me, but I did not ask about that. Shall I capture her and force her to talk? There's no need for that. Besides, we'll be heading to the Adventurers Guild too, so we can just ask the guild when we get there. Surely she did not intend to directly thank Ains Olgaun. If it was for that objective, she could simply leave a message with Lupus Regina, whom he occasionally sent to the village. Oh yes, Nabe. Have you received any special reports from Lupus Regina? Narbril shook her head, and Ains furrowed his naturally, they were non-existent brows. He had originally planned to station a shadow demon in the village, but he had instead sent Lupus Regina over in order to forge friendly relations. He had ordered Lupus Regina to report anything that happened in the village to him immediately. However, no information had made its way to Ains up till this point. Therefore, he had believed that Karn village was fine. Was that not the case? While there was no need to tell him about trivia, such as Enri went to Irantal by herself, uneasiness still shrouded Ains' heart like a cloud. I've always thought Lupus Regina was a hard worker. Nabe, what do you think? It is as you say, Ains-sama. While her tone makes her seem very casual, that is only an act. She is cruel and cunning, an excellent maid. There was no way cruelty and slyness could be taken as compliments. Ains glanced at Narbril's face, wondering if she thought ill of Lupus Regina, but her cool expression only contained her respect for a colleague. Then, my lord, shall we proceed presently to the Adventurers Guild as you said earlier? Yes, do you know its location? Narbril, you sit behind me. Since you've already put away the statue of animal, warhorse, there's no need to go to the trouble of taking it out again. Ains grabbed Narbril's hand and sat her behind him. Hamsuk seemed eager to move off and picked up the pace. He was no longer embarrassed to ride Hamsuk through the streets. In addition, Hamsuk could understand language and take orders, which pleased him. It felt just like riding a cab. Soon, the Adventurers Guild appeared before his eyes. At the same time, he saw the wagon from earlier, and Enri's back as she entered the guild. There's nothing else to be done. Hamsuk, will go in through the back door. Circle round the back. Understood, my lord. Usually, adventurers were not allowed to enter the guild through the back door. However, anything was possible for adamantite-ranked adventurers. Incidentally, it was also Ain's first time doing this. He might be of a privileged class, but abusing his privileges would damage his reputation. After entering the guild through the back door, he asked the first guild employee he saw to take him to the guildmaster's room. Fortunately, the guildmaster was in. Oh, if it isn't Mamonkun. Welcome. The guildmaster Einzak opened his arms wide to welcome Ains, and then he warmly embraced Ains. While he thought nothing of it, because he was wearing his armor and a helmet, there were many reasons, which would have made him avoid that ardent embrace if he were in a thin layer of clothing. He patted Ains intimately on the back before slowly releasing him. I've been so lonely because you haven't come around lately. Come, have a seat. Let's chat a bit before the others show up. The guildmaster looked like he was welcoming a friend he had not seen for a long time as he happily indicated the sofa. Thank you. After Ains took a seat, the guildmaster sat down beside him. The two of them were very close. Their knees were touching, and it was stifling. Mamonkun, we've known each other for so long, surely we can speak more freely around each other, No, there must be politeness even as there's familiarity. This is very important, it's what my seniors taught me. Granted, if he were a salaryman, he would have spoken with more closeness sometimes, he even spoke to customers in a normal tone. However, he did not wish to get so close to the guildmaster. He felt that maintaining a businesslike attitude was the right answer. Getting too close to the group will only become a burden. I don't want to be too closely tied to the Adventurers Guild of a single city. Should I leave for greener pastures soon? Besides, Ains glanced at the guildmaster through the eye slits of his helmet. Besides, why the heck is he sitting so close to me? Normally, you'd let Narbril sit beside me, and you'd sit opposite me, right? Their proximity made him feel uncomfortable. It was no wonder Ains began to suspect if the guildmaster was gay. I heard the Magician's guildmaster say he had a wife. Or is his wife just a beard? I thought he was just trying to get me on his side, but it's having the opposite effect. Or does he think I'm gay? That final mental image made Ains shudder. Ains was heterosexual. No, to be precise, he used to be. Incidentally, Suzuki Satoru preferred larger breasts. That point had, probably, not changed, even after gaining this body. That was because he preferred albedo slightly more to, say, cositis. Ains adjusted his sitting position, moving slightly away from the guildmaster, and then he turned to face him. Forgive my rudeness, but I came here with a question. It's like this: one of my friends should have come to the Adventurers Guild by now, and I'd like to know what sort of request she put in. Well, the rules make it somewhat difficult to tell you about this. Thus, I seek your understanding in the matter. I do understand I'm imposing, and I understand the need to obey the guild's rules. However, I hope you will lend me your help in this. Ains bowed his head, to which the guildmaster responded by folding his arms and staring at the ceiling, a stern look on his face. However, he only held that pose for a short while. I understand, he smiled to Ains. Since it's you asking, Mamonkun, I can't exactly reject it either. Then, could you tell me that person's name? She is Enri of Karn Village. No, Enri Amat. Enri, is it? Then, could you give me a little time? Before long, the guildmaster returned. He was followed by one of the receptionists which Ains had seen before. She moved stiffly as she entered the room. Maman-sama. My apologies. This was the first time Ains had ever seen someone walk, while moving both the arms and legs on the same sides of their body at the same time. He thought, that's quite something and there's no need to be so tense, but in the end, he still nodded haughtily. Part of the challenge of being an adamantite-ranked adventurer, that he could not appear too relaxed. This receptionist attended to Enri Ahmad of Karn village. It would be better for you to ask her directly. Ask her anything you wish to know. Is that so? Then no, before that, perhaps she should have a seat, guildmaster. But this is your room, and it is not up to me to know. There's no need to bother you. I'm fine with standing. Perhaps Suzuki Satoru might have felt that it was very wrong to be seated while his opposite number was standing. However, in the process of being Ains' old gown of being the leader of the great underground tomb of Nazarick, he had gradually lost such feelings. He was slowly becoming used to the difference between a leader and a follower. Perhaps this was an indication that his actions as a master, role-playing, were not a waste of effort, but he had indeed accumulated experience points. How much more until I level up? Oops. I see. Then, let's get down to business. I would like you to tell me about her request, in as much detail as possible. This is a very important matter, so can you tell me everything about it? Why yes. The receptionist's forehead was beaded in cold sweat. What is it? Is there a problem? No, I mean, the receptionist's eyes were flickering from side to side. Am I asking the wrong questions? Perhaps, so let's try this. Was she looking for someone in particular to help with her request? No, it's not like that. Ah, I see then, what sort of request was it? Or was it not even a request? Actually, she did not make a request right away, just said that she might make one in future. And then she mentioned something about monsters called the Giant of the East and the Serpent of the West, who were comparable to the wise king of the forest which you tamed, Maman-sama. That's all. Ains was quite surprised by how tongue-tied she sounded, but he continued asking, so it's a future request, then? No, it's not. I didn't know she was a friend of yours, Maman-sama. If I'd known, I would have asked more carefully. Really? Ains was quite perturbed by the receptionist, who was wailing while on the verge of tears. Could someone as emotional as this really man a counter? Guildmaster. My apologies. We did not oversee this adequately. Why's it like that? Isn't that how the guild's rules work? After listening to their conversation, Ains realized how they had misinterpreted his intentions. The receptionist and guildmaster believed that Ains and Enri were friends, and while he had intended to take her job for free, he had decided to give the Adventurers Guild their due deference and thus they had arranged for him to accept her request through the guild. However, the receptionist had coldly chased away Enri by bringing up the matter of fees. Therefore, the two of them were arguing about who should be taking the responsibility for chasing away the friend of an adamantite-ranked adventurer. No, if this was a rule of the organization, then wouldn't she be right to have obeyed it? Ains stared at the guildmaster as he rebuked the receptionist, and his opinion of the man took a sharp dive in his eyes. If a subordinate makes a mistake, her superior ought to cover for her. Or is this some sort of high-level technique where he savagely scolds her in front of a customer to earn the customer's sympathy, and thus his forgiveness? I mean, look at how he's laying into her. Ains felt that the receptionist had handled this correctly, and the guildmaster should have known that as well. However, just like how he had come in through the back door, and leaned on the guildmaster for a favor, adamantite-ranked adventurers could easily bend the rules. That was because they were valuable enough that the guild wanted to keep them around, even if they flouted the rules. That was probably why the two of them were arguing now. I didn't know. Ains gently spoke to comfort the weeping receptionist. The fault is not yours. The receptionist's eyes went wide, and her tears flowed out from them and rolled down her cheeks. Obeying the organization's rules is very important, even if they must be overlooked from time to time. I will not hold this incident against you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Then, I hope I can trouble you to go get the details from her. Please don't say I'll be taking it, only that I want to be ready to make a move at any time. I understand. I'll go ask now. I'm very sorry. The receptionist turned and ran off like the passing of a typhoon. While I know you wanted to gain my sympathy, I would prefer if you did not falsely blame someone who was innocent. It displeases me. As I thought, I can't pull the wool over your eyes, Maman Cohen. Those words sounded like they had been squeezed out of the depths of his soul, and Ains knew that his guess had been correct. So the techniques of the Japanese salaryman are universally applicable. However, the problem is the form of Lupus Regina came to Ains' mind. Why didn't Lupus Regina have any information about monsters that even a village girl like Henry was aware of? Was it a failure in the construction of the intelligence network? I need to make sure. As Ains waited for the receptionist to report to him, he mused that he would need to return to Nazareth and sort this out. Diamond suit 1641 Nazareth time. A nervous-looking Lupus Regina entered Ains' office. The panic and unease of being suddenly summoned was written all over her face. Inside the office were Lupus Regina, the regular maid Sixth, the battle maid Narbril, Aura, who was the one most familiar with the forest, the 8-edge assassins on the ceiling, and the owner of the room, Ains. Incidentally, Albedo was still in confinement. Lupus Regina was about to prostrate before Ains when he interrupted her. Lupus Regina, is there something you've kept from me? After seeing the confused look on her face, he wondered if she did not know about it after all. Ains decided to repeat what he had heard about the Giant of the East and the Serpent of the West from the Adventurers Guild. However, as he saw that Lupus Regina seemed to have known about this long before, Ains' mood rapidly deteriorated. He exhaled long and loud. So you were aware of this, then? Yes. About that, you fool. Ruled by anger, Ains' wrath-filled shout echoed through the room. As the others recoiled like they had been struck by lightning, Ains felt something suppress his emotions, but even after the peak of rage was cut off, his anger surged up again, and there was no way he could fully rein in his ire. Why did you not report this to me? Were you trying to keep this from me? And no. Nothing like that. Then why? Why did none of this reach me at all? What was the reason for that? B. Because I thought it wasn't a big deal, so I didn't report. For some reason, the sight of the frightened battle maid peeking up at him only incensed him further. Lupus Regina Beta. I am thoroughly disappointed in you. Lupus Regina was not the only one who flinched at this. Nabe and Sixth were trembling too, and the 8-edge assassins on the ceiling seemed to have frozen up as well. I gave you discretion over handling the village, but that does not mean you can do as you please. You were told to report anything that happened in the village, anything at all, so what is the meaning of this? That's... Ains' face twisted as he looked down on Lupus Regina, who was unable to answer him. This was an unforgivable sin for a worker, no, for anyone. These rules were obvious for anyone who did business, or rather, for anyone who worked in society at all: report, communicate, discuss. It was an abbreviation of reporting what you had learned, communicating clearly with others, and discussing issues as they came up. They were very important, the lifeblood of the giant that was working society. If she can't even do that, I don't think I can forgive her from the perspective of a leader, no. As he looked on the terrified Lupus Regina, Ains could not help but think that he was at least partially to blame. These mistakes would only result if a superior was unreliable and could not properly direct his subordinates. A failure in the group's communications is my fault. I couldn't take proper control of this. Maybe I should step back and let Demiurge or Albedo handle this sort of thing. Lupus Regina, are you aware of Karn Village's value to Nazareth? Huh? No, yes. I heard you say that village is very valuable, Ain-sama. No, I mean, what do you personally feel is valuable about the village? Well, there's a lot of toys there and, Ah, that's how it is. Well then, I'm sorry. It was my mistake. I did not realize you thought like that. Ains laughed tiredly. He realized it had been his fault after all. I take back what I said about you being a disappointment. I went too far. Please forgive me. What are you saying? It was my foolish mistake. In that case, just be more careful next time. Now then, I'll explain again, so pay close attention. That village is very valuable to us. Especially that boy, Nephiria, and his grandmother Lizzie. They are of great importance to Nazarick. Is that so? Indeed. I have handed the task of creating new potions to those two. Ah, that's right. I have something to show you, Ain-sama. Lupus Regina suddenly shouted that last part as her face turned pale. She took out a vial of purple potion and Narbril, who was closest to her, took it and handed it to Ains.